The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado, California. Sarah Martinez adjusted her combat boots one final time, before stepping onto the sandy training ground where her life would change forever. At 24, she had already proven herself as one of the most physically capable recruits in her class, but today would test more than just her endurance. Sarah came from a military family. Her father served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and her older brother was a Marine stationed overseas. Growing up, she learned that respect wasn't given freely in the military. It had to be earned through sweat, determination, and an unwavering commitment to excellence. She had trained for months to qualify for the Navy SEAL program, knowing she would face skepticism and challenges that her male counterparts might never encounter. The training facility buzzed with activity as dozens of recruits prepared for another grueling day. Sarah noticed the whispers and sideways glances from some of her fellow trainees. Being one of only 3 women in a program traditionally dominated by men meant every move she made was scrutinized. Some recruits welcomed the diversity, while others remained skeptical about whether women belonged in such an elite unit. Officer Marcus Thompson stood at the center of the training ground, his imposing figure commanding attention. At 6'3" with 15 years of military experience, Thompson had earned his reputation as one of the toughest instructors at the facility. His methods were old school, and he believed that only the strongest and most resilient candidates deserved to wear the SEAL trident. Thompson had made it clear from day one that he would not lower standards for anyone, regardless of gender. As the recruits assembled in formation, Sarah felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came before intense training sessions. Today's focus would be close-quarters combat and defensive tactics skills. That could mean the difference between life and death in real combat situations. The ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and possibility as Thompson began outlining the day's exercises. The training began with standard drills that Sarah had mastered weeks ago. She moved through each exercise with precision and confidence, her movements fluid and controlled. Other recruits struggled with the complex maneuvers, but Sarah's background in martial arts and her dedication to physical fitness set her apart. She had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, studying techniques and conditioning her body for the demands of elite military training. Thompson watched the proceedings with his usual stern expression, occasionally barking corrections or encouragement. He had been observing Sarah's progress for weeks, noting her exceptional performance while maintaining his professional demeanor. However, beneath the surface, old-fashioned attitudes about women in combat roles influenced his judgment more than he cared to admit. As the morning progressed, the exercises became more challenging and physically demanding. Sarah continued to excel, moving through obstacle courses and combat simulations with the skill of someone who belonged in the program. Her fellow recruits began to take notice, some offering nods of respect while others seemed frustrated by her success. The atmosphere grew tense as Thompson decided to escalate the training intensity. He called for individual demonstrations, requiring each recruit to showcase their defensive skills against simulated attacks. This was where theory met practice, where months of preparation would be tested under pressure. Sarah knew this moment would be crucial in proving her worth to both her instructors and fellow recruits. When Thompson's eyes landed on Sarah, she could sense the challenge in his gaze. This wasn't just another training exercise, it was a test that went beyond physical capability. The other recruits formed a circle, creating an impromptu arena where Sarah would need to demonstrate everything she had learned. The sand beneath her feet felt solid and reassuring as she prepared for whatever Thompson had planned. Thompson stepped forward with the confidence of someone who had never been bested in training. His years of experience and physical advantages made him formidable, but Sarah had faced intimidating opponents before. She understood that size and strength weren't the only factors that determined victory in combat. Intelligence, speed, technique, and mental toughness could often overcome raw power. The tension in the air was palpable as both instructor and recruit prepared for what everyone expected to be a routine demonstration of defensive tactics. Neither Sarah nor Thompson fully understood that the next few moments would become legendary. among the recruits and would fundamentally change how female candidates were perceived in the program. Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself and calling upon years of training that had prepared her for exactly this type of moment. She knew that whatever happened next would define not just her own future in the program, but potentially the opportunities available to women who would follow in her footsteps. The weight of that responsibility felt both heavy and motivating as she prepared to face one of the most respected and feared instructors in the entire facility. The circle of recruits tightened as Thompson explained the exercise. Each candidate would face a simulated attack and demonstrate proper defensive responses. Sarah watched as several recruits before her struggled with the intense pressure of performing under Thompson's critical eye. Some succeeded admirably, while others fumbled under the stress. Earning sharp critiques from the demanding instructor, Sarah's turn approached, and she could feel her heart rate increase not from fear, but from the anticipation of proving herself. She had visualized this moment countless times during her preparation. Her martial arts background included extensive training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, and traditional boxing. She understood leverage, timing, and the importance of using an opponent's momentum against them. Thompson positioned himself across from Sarah, his stance casual but ready. To the observers, it appeared to be a routine training demonstration. Thompson had conducted thousands of these exercises over his career, and he expected this one to follow the familiar pattern of instructor, demonstrating superior skill while teaching valuable lessons to the recruit. "Remember, Martinez," Thompson called out loud enough for all recruits to hear. "In real combat situations, your opponents won't care about your gender. They'll use every advantage they have, including size and strength. You need to be prepared for that reality." Sarah nodded, understanding the lesson but also recognizing the underlying message. Thompson wasn't just teaching combat techniques, he was questioning whether she truly belonged in this elite program. She had heard similar challenges throughout her military career, and each time they only strengthened her resolve to prove her capabilities. The exercise began with Thompson initiating a controlled attack, moving toward Sarah with the practiced movements of an experienced fighter. In most demonstrations, the recruit would show basic defensive postures and perhaps attempt a simple counter move before Thompson would control the situation and provide instruction. Sarah responded differently than Thompson expected. Instead of showing textbook defensive moves, she flowed into an advanced defensive sequence that demonstrated both technical skill and tactical awareness. Her footwork was precise, her hand positioning perfect, and her timing impeccable. Thompson found himself impressed, despite his skepticism. Encouraged by Sarah's competent initial response, Thompson decided to increase the intensity of the demonstration. He wanted to see how she would handle real pressure, so he began moving faster and with more aggressive intent. This decision would prove to be a crucial turning point in what everyone had expected to be a routine training exercise. Sarah recognized the escalation immediately. Her training had taught her to read opponents and adapt to changing dynamics in real time. She understood that Thompson was no longer conducting a standard demonstration, he was genuinely testing her limits, rather than intimidating her. This realization focused her mind and activated the fighting instinct she had spent years developing. The other recruits sensed the change in atmosphere. What had started as an educational demonstration was transforming into something more intense and unpredictable. Some leaned forward to get a better view. While others seemed concerned about the escalating nature of the encounter, Thompson's movements became more aggressive and less controlled than typical training protocols recommended. His years of experience and physical advantages made him confident that he could handle any response from Sarah while still maintaining the instructional nature of the exercise. He had never encountered a female recruit who possessed both the technical skill and mental toughness to present a genuine challenge. Sarah's response surprised everyone, including herself. Years of training took over as her body moved with fluid efficiency. She didn't think about techniques or strategies. She simply reacted with the instincts that had been drilled into her through countless hours of practice. Her movements were economical and precise, Wasting no energy while maximizing effectiveness, the demonstration reached a critical moment when Thompson, perhaps influenced by old attitudes about women in combat, made a tactical error. He allowed his assumptions about Sarah's capabilities to affect his judgment, leading him to make a move that a more cautious approach would have avoided. Sarah saw the opening immediately. Her training had taught her to recognize and exploit such moments without hesitation. In combat, opportunities appear and disappear in fractions of seconds, and those who succeed are those who can recognize and act upon these fleeting chances. The circle of recruits held their collective breath as the demonstration reached its climax. Nobody, including Thompson himself, had anticipated that a routine training exercise would evolve into such a dramatic and significant moment. The outcome would not only affect Sarah's standing in the program, but would also challenge long-held assumptions about women's roles in elite military units. Sarah's next move would demonstrate that excellence in combat has nothing to do with gender and everything to do with skill, preparation, mental toughness, and the ability to perform under pressure. The sand beneath their feet and the California sun overhead would bear witness to a moment that would be discussed and remembered long after the training session ended. The moment arrived with startling suddenness. Thompson, caught up in the escalating intensity of the demonstration, made a move that crossed the line from training exercise to something more serious. His hand struck toward Sarah with more force than any standard drill required, the impact sharp enough to sting and surprise not just Sarah, but every recruit watching the encounter unfold. The circle of observers fell silent. This wasn't the controlled, educational demonstration they had expected to witness. Thompson had allowed his skepticism about women in combat roles to influence his actions, and the result was a moment that everyone present would remember for the rest of their military careers. Sarah felt the strike, but more than the physical impact, she processed what had just occurred. In that split second, her mind analyzed the situation with crystal clarity. This was no longer a training exercise. Thompson had escalated beyond appropriate boundaries. Her response would need to be decisive and immediate. The 5 seconds that followed would become the stuff of legend among Navy SEAL recruits. Sarah's reaction was so swift and technically perfect that many observers would later describe it as almost supernatural. Years of training condensed into a moment of pure instinct and skill. Sarah's first movement was a deflection that redirected Thompson's momentum while simultaneously positioning herself for a counterattack. Her Brazilian jiu-jitsu background had taught her that leverage and technique could overcome size and strength advantages. She moved with the fluid grace of someone who had practiced these movements thousands of times. Thompson, suddenly realizing that his routine demonstration had become something entirely different, attempted to regain control of the situation. His experience told him to reset the encounter and return to standard training protocols. However, Sarah's response was too fast and too technically sound for him to easily counter. The second movement in Sarah's sequence involved a hip throw that used Thompson's own weight and momentum against him. The technique was executed with textbook precision, demonstrating not just physical skill but also tactical intelligence. She had read Thompson's movement patterns and exploited a weakness that his overconfidence had created. Recruits around the circle began to understand that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Sarah wasn't just defending herself, she was demonstrating combat skills at a level that rivaled or exceeded those of their instructors. The implications of what they were seeing would reshape their understanding of what female recruits could accomplish. Thompson found himself off balance and struggling to comprehend how the situation had developed so quickly. His years of experience in training recruits had not prepared him for facing someone with Sarah's combination of skill, speed, and mental toughness. The realization that he was genuinely being challenged was both surprising and humbling. Sarah's third movement completed the sequence. That would overpower one of the most respected instructors at the facility. She applied a submission technique with controlled precision, demonstrating that she could not only neutralize Thompson's attack, but also gain complete control of the encounter. The application was firm enough to be effective but controlled. enough to avoid injury. The silence around the circle was profound. Recruits who had questioned whether women belonged in the SEAL program found their assumptions challenged in the most dramatic way possible. Others who had supported diversity in elite military units felt vindicated by Sarah's performance. Everyone present understood they had witnessed something significant. Thompson, now in a position where he had been clearly outmaneuvered, faced a choice that would define his character. He could allow ego and embarrassment to dictate his response, or he could acknowledge what had just occurred with the professionalism that his position demanded. The next few moments would reveal whether he was truly the leader his reputation suggested. Sarah maintained her position with the calm control of someone who understood the situation completely. She had neutralized the threat and gained dominance, but she showed no signs of aggression or triumphalism. Her demeanor remained professional and focused, demonstrating the mental discipline that elite military units required. The other recruits began to process what they had witnessed. Some felt inspired by Sarah's performance, while others struggled to reconcile what they had seen with their preconceived notions about gender roles in combat. All of them understood that they had observed something that would influence their own attitudes and approaches to training. Word of the encounter would spread quickly through the facility. Instructors would hear different versions of the story, each retelling adding its own interpretation to the events. Some would focus on Sarah's exceptional skill, while others would question Thompson's judgment in escalating the demonstration beyond appropriate boundaries. The 5 seconds that had just elapsed contained enough drama and significance to fuel discussions for months to come. Sarah had not only proven her individual capabilities but had also challenged institutional assumptions about women in elite military roles. Her response to Thompson's inappropriate escalation had been both professionally appropriate and devastatingly effective. As the immediate tension of the moment began to subside, everyone present understood that they had participated in a defining moment that would influence how female recruits were perceived and treated in the program going forward. The aftermath of Sarah's demonstration created a profound shift in the training grounds atmosphere. Thompson, still processing the reality of being outmaneuvered by a recruit he had underestimated, slowly regained his footing. The professional in him recognized that Sarah had executed flawless technique under pressure, while his ego struggled with the public nature of his miscalculation. Sarah released her controlling position with the same precision she had used to achieve it. She stepped back and assumed a respectful stance, waiting for Thompson's response. Her breathing remained controlled, and her expression showed neither arrogance nor apology. She had simply responded appropriately to an inappropriate escalation, and her demeanor reflected the confidence of someone who understood exactly what had transpired. Thompson straightened his uniform and looked directly at Sarah. The circle of recruits remained silent, understanding that whatever happened next would set the tone for how such situations would be handled in the future. Thompson's response would reveal whether he possessed the character and professionalism that his position demanded. "Outstanding technique, Martinez," Thompson said, his voice carrying across the training ground with clear authority. That sequence demonstrated exactly the kind of adaptability and skill we expect from SEAL candidates. His acknowledgement was professional and genuine, setting an example for how leaders should respond. When their assumptions are challenged by superior performance, the recruits around the circle began to relax, realizing that the tense moment had resolved positively. Thompson's gracious acknowledgement of Sarah's skill demonstrated the kind of leadership that earned genuine respect rather than compliance based on rank alone. His ability to set aside personal embarrassment for the sake of professional growth impressed many of the observers. Sarah nodded respectfully in response to Thompson's comment. "Thank you, sir. The training has prepared us well for situations requiring quick adaptation." Her response showed both humility and confidence, acknowledging her preparation while avoiding any hint of disrespect toward Thompson. Thompson used the moment as a teaching opportunity for all the recruits present. What you just witnessed illustrates several important principles. First, never underestimate an opponent based on appearance or assumptions. Second, superior technique and preparation can overcome physical disadvantages. Third, controlling emotions under pressure is as important as physical skill. The impromptu lesson resonated with the recruits, who had just seen these principles demonstrated in dramatic fashion. Many of them would later reflect on how their own assumptions about capability and gender had been challenged by Sarah's performance. The encounter became a catalyst for broader discussions about merit-based evaluation in military settings. As training resumed, the dynamic among the recruits had noticeably shifted. Sarah found herself receiving more respectful attention from her peers, many of whom now approached her with questions about technique and preparation. The skepticism that had followed her throughout the program began to transform into genuine respect and curiosity. Other female recruits in the program felt particularly inspired by Sarah's performance. They had watched someone who shared their gender challenges overcome not just physical obstacles but also institutional skepticism through excellence and preparation. Sarah's success provided proof that barriers could be overcome through dedication and skill. Thompson privately reflected on the encounter throughout the rest of the training session. His years of experience had taught him to value learning opportunities even when they came in unexpected forms. Sarah's performance had challenged him to examine his own assumptions and reminded him why the military's shift toward merit-based evaluation was both necessary and beneficial. The story of Sarah's 5-second demonstration began spreading beyond the immediate training group. Other instructors heard various versions of the account, each adding their own interpretation and emphasis. Some focused on the technical aspects of Sarah's performance, while others discussed the implications for training protocols and instructor conduct. Senior leadership at the facility took notice of the incident, not as a disciplinary matter, but as a positive example of how capable recruits could exceed expectations when given appropriate opportunities. The encounter reinforced their commitment to ensuring that all candidates were evaluated based on performance rather than preconceived notions about capability. Sarah's reputation within the program transformed virtually overnight. Recruits who had previously questioned her presence now sought her advice on training techniques. Her combination of technical skill, mental toughness, and professional demeanor established her as a natural leader among her peers. The training session concluded with a sense that something significant had occurred. The recruits dispersed with new perspectives on capability, preparation, and the importance of challenging assumptions. Many would carry the lessons learned from Sarah's demonstration throughout their military careers. Thompson approached Sarah privately after the other recruits had departed. "That was exceptional work today, Martinez. Your preparation and execution were textbook perfect. I want you to know that kind of performance is exactly what we're looking for in this program." His personal acknowledgement meant more than any public praise could have. Sarah appreciated Thompson's private recognition and his professional handling of the situation. "Thank you, sir. I'm grateful for the training opportunity and the chance to demonstrate what I've learned." Her response showed the maturity and professionalism that would serve her well throughout her military career. The day's events had established Sarah as one of the standout candidates in her training class, while also providing valuable lessons for everyone involved about capability, assumption, and the importance of merit-based evaluation in elite military programs. Word of Sarah's extraordinary demonstration spread throughout the Naval Special Warfare facility faster than morning fog rolling in from the Pacific. By evening, instructors in other training programs had heard various versions of the story, each retelling adding new details and interpretations to the already remarkable account of a recruit overpowering a veteran instructor in 5 seconds. The facility's commanding officer, Captain Rebecca Hayes, requested a detailed briefing about the incident. As one of the few female officers in senior leadership, she understood both the significance of Sarah's achievement and the potential implications for the program's future. The briefing confirmed that the encounter had been handled professionally by all parties and had actually enhanced rather than disrupted the training environment. Sarah found herself becoming an unofficial mentor to other female recruits in the program. Women who had struggled with confidence issues or faced skepticism from peers began seeking her advice on preparation techniques and mental approaches to training. She gladly shared her knowledge while emphasizing that success required individual dedication rather than simply following someone else's path. The technical aspects of Sarah's demonstration became a subject of study among the facility's instructors. Combat specialists analyzed the sequence of movements she had used to neutralize Thompson's attack, noting the precision and efficiency of her technique. Several instructors incorporated elements of her approach into their own teaching methods. Thompson experienced his own transformation following the encounter. The experience of being outmaneuvered had initially challenged his ego, but reflection helped him recognize the value of the lesson. He began approaching training with renewed curiosity and openness, understanding that learning opportunities could come from unexpected sources. 3 weeks after the demonstration, Sarah faced her most challenging test yet, the facility's comprehensive combat evaluation. This assessment would determine whether she possessed the complete skill set necessary to advance to the next phase of SEAL training. The evaluation included multiple scenarios designed to test decision-making. Under extreme pressure, the combat evaluation took place in a simulated urban environment where recruits faced complex scenarios requiring quick thinking and flawless execution. Sarah's reputation preceded her into the assessment, and evaluators watched her performance with particular interest. They wanted to determine whether her previous demonstration represented consistent capability or a single moment of exceptional performance. Sarah navigated each scenario with the same combination of technical skill and tactical intelligence that had impressed observers during her encounter with Thompson. Her performance was consistently excellent, demonstrating that her previous success had been based on solid preparation rather than luck or circumstance. Other recruits in Sarah's class found themselves inspired by her example. Several male candidates who had initially been skeptical about women in the program began to understand that capability had nothing to do with gender. They started training harder, motivated by the standard of excellence that Sarah had established. The evaluation results confirmed what many observers already suspected. Sarah ranked among the top performers in her entire training class. Her scores in combat scenarios, physical fitness, and leadership exercises placed her in the upper tier of all candidates, regardless of gender. The achievement represented validation of everything she had worked to accomplish. Captain Hayes personally delivered Sarah's evaluation results, taking the opportunity to discuss the broader implications of her success. "Your performance has opened doors for future female candidates," Hayes explained. "You've proven that excellence speaks louder than any prejudice or assumption. That creates both opportunities and responsibilities." Sarah understood the weight of Captain Hayes' words. Her success would influence how future female recruits were perceived and treated. She felt honored to play a role in advancing opportunities for women in elite military roles while also recognizing the pressure that came with being a trailblazer. The transformation in the facility's culture became evident during subsequent training sessions. Instructors approached all recruits with more objective assessment criteria, focusing exclusively on performance rather than allowing assumptions to influence their evaluation. The change created a more merit-based environment that benefited everyone. Sarah's fellow recruits elected her to serve as their class leader, recognizing both her exceptional capabilities and her ability to inspire others to achieve their best performance. The role required coordinating training activities and representing the class in communications with facility leadership. She accepted the responsibility with characteristic professionalism. Thompson found that his own reputation had been enhanced rather than damaged by the encounter with Sarah. Other instructors respected his professional handling of being outmaneuvered by a recruit and his willingness to acknowledge superior performance when he encountered it. The incident had demonstrated his character and leadership qualities. Media outlets eventually learned about Sarah's remarkable demonstration, though the facility's public affairs office carefully controlled the narrative to focus on the positive aspects of diversity and merit-based evaluation in military training. Sarah's story became an inspiration to young women. Considering military careers, the ripple effects of that 5-second encounter continued to influence the facility's culture months later. Female recruitment for elite military programs increased as word spread about opportunities for women to succeed based on merit and preparation. Sarah's achievement had created lasting change that extended far beyond her individual success. As Sarah prepared for the next phase of her training, she reflected on how a single moment of proving herself had transformed not just her own trajectory but also the opportunities available to those who would follow. Her dedication to excellence had created positive change that would benefit future generations of military women. 6 months later, Sarah Martinez stood on the same training ground where she had made history, but now she wore the coveted SEAL trident on her uniform. She had successfully completed one of the most demanding military training programs in the world, earning her place among an elite brotherhood that had previously been exclusively male. Her journey from questioned recruit to decorated SEAL represented more than personal achievement. It symbolized the evolution of military culture toward true merit-based evaluation. The graduation ceremony attracted attention from senior military leadership, media representatives, and family members who had traveled from across the country to witness this historic moment. Sarah's parents sat in the front row, their faces reflecting pride mixed with amazement at how far their daughter had come. Her father, a veteran himself, understood the magnitude of what she had accomplished. Captain Hayes delivered the keynote address, speaking about the importance of adaptability and excellence in modern military operations. She specifically acknowledged Sarah's contributions to advancing opportunities for women in elite military roles, noting how one moment of exceptional performance had catalyzed broader cultural change within the organization. Sarah's former classmates, many of whom had also successfully completed the program, gathered around her after the ceremony. The bonds formed during their shared ordeal had transcended any initial skepticism about gender integration. They had learned to judge each other based on capability and character rather than superficial characteristics. Thompson, now serving as Sarah's first operational commander, approached her with a broad smile. "Ready for your first deployment, Sil Martinez?" he asked, extending his hand in congratulation. The professional relationship that had begun with mutual testing had evolved into genuine respect and effective teamwork. Sarah's success had inspired a new generation of female recruits to pursue careers in elite military units. Applications from qualified women had increased dramatically following media coverage of her achievement. The Navy had responded by ensuring that training facilities were properly equipped and staffed to handle the growing diversity of candidates. The operational team that Sarah joined included veterans with decades of experience alongside recent graduates like herself. Her integration into the unit proceeded smoothly, with team members evaluating her based on current performance rather than preconceived notions. She quickly established herself as a valuable contributor to mission planning and execution. During her first deployment, Sarah encountered situations that tested everything she had learned during training. The skills demonstrated during her famous 5-second encounter with Thompson proved invaluable in real-world scenarios, where quick thinking and precise technique could mean the difference between mission success and failure. Sarah's team members learned to appreciate her unique combination of technical proficiency and tactical intelligence. Her approach to problem-solving and her ability to remain calm under extreme pressure enhanced the unit's overall effectiveness. Gender became irrelevant as team members focused on leveraging each individual's strengths. The story of Sarah's demonstration during training became part of the facility's unofficial history, shared with new recruits as an example of how excellence could overcome prejudice and assumption. Instructors used the account to illustrate important principles about merit-based evaluation, and the dangers of underestimating opponents based on appearance. Thompson had incorporated the lessons learned from his encounter with Sarah into his training methods. He approached all recruits with more objectivity, focusing on performance rather than allowing assumptions to influence his assessment. His evolution as an instructor made him more effective and respected among both colleagues and trainees. Sarah established a mentorship program for female recruits entering elite military training programs. She shared practical advice about preparation techniques, while emphasizing that success required individual dedication rather than following someone else's exact path. Her guidance helped smooth the transition for women entering previously male-dominated fields. The cultural transformation that began with Sarah's 5-second demonstration continued to influence military training programs nationwide. Other services studied the Navy's approach to gender integration, incorporating successful elements into their own programs. Sarah's achievement had created positive change that extended throughout the military. Years later, as Sarah advanced through the ranks and took on leadership responsibilities, she never forgot the moment that had defined her early career. The 5 seconds during which she had overpowered a skeptical instructor had proven that capability transcended gender, and that preparation and determination could overcome any obstacle. The training ground where Sarah had made her mark continued to produce exceptional warriors of all backgrounds. New recruits learned about the importance of merit-based evaluation and the dangers of allowing assumptions to limit potential. Sarah's legacy lived on in the more inclusive and effective military culture that her achievement had helped create. Sarah's story became an inspiration, not just within military circles but throughout society. Young women in various fields drew motivation from her example of overcoming skepticism through excellence and preparation. Her achievement demonstrated that barriers could be broken when individuals combined talent with determination and opportunity. The 5-second encounter that had seemed like a simple training demonstration had ultimately transformed careers, challenged institutions, and opened doors for future generations. Sarah's quick thinking and flawless execution had proven that excellence knows no gender, and that true strength comes from preparation, skill, and the courage to perform when it matters most. Her legacy continued to inspire others to pursue their dreams regardless of the obstacles they might face.